Kong Tai-ho was having the worst day of his life. He was stuck inside a maintenance tunnel on Deck 7, surrounded by pipes that were older than his grandfather. The air smelled like burned metal and something that might have been mold. His uniform was already soaked with sweat, and he had only been working for 2 hours. The diplomatic station called Horizon's Edge floated in the empty space between 3 star systems. It was neutral ground, a place where different alien species came to talk, argue, and sometimes make peace. Tai-ho had worked here for 18 months. His job was simple. He fixed things that broke. Pipes, wires, air filters, broken doors. Nothing important. Nothing dangerous. He liked it that way. Tai-ho was not a brave man. He knew this about himself. He was 26 years old, average height, average build, with a round face that his mother said looked trustworthy. He had joined the Terran Space Corps because it paid well and because Earth was expensive. He had asked for a quiet posting. They gave him Horizon's Edge. Most days, nothing happened here. Diplomats talked in fancy rooms. Tai-ho fixed toilets. Everyone was happy. But today was not most days. The pipe in front of him made a sound like a dying animal. Tai-ho grabbed his wrench and tried to tighten the connection. Blue coolant fluid sprayed across his face. "Oh no," he said. No. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve, which only made things worse. The coolant was everywhere now. On his uniform. In his hair. Dripping down his neck. He looked like he had lost a fight with a blueberry. His earpiece crackled. "Attention all personnel." It was Park Yuna's voice. She was the chief communications officer and also his supervisor. She sounded stressed, which was unusual. Yuna never sounded stressed. "The Nocturne Imperial Fleet has arrived. They are 3 hours ahead of schedule. All non-essential crew must clear the main atrium immediately. The Empress boards in 15 minutes. Tai-ho's blood went cold. The Nocturnes. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Nocturnes. They were an ancient species. Pale skin. Red eyes. Fangs. They looked like the vampires from old Earth stories. Except they were real, and they ruled an empire that stretched across 12 star systems. Their empress was named Valora. She was over 800 years old. She had ended wars by walking into enemy capitals and killing everyone who stood in her way. She had once executed an ambassador because he mispronounced her name. Another time, she had drained the blood of an entire diplomatic team because their gift was insulting. No one insulted Empress Valora twice. Because no one survived the first time, Tai-ho needed to leave. Right now, he grabbed his tools and crawled toward the maintenance hatch. His hands were shaking. The coolant made everything slippery. He reached the hatch and pushed. It did not move. He pushed harder. Nothing. "Come on," he whispered. Please open." He slammed his shoulder against the metal. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th try, the hatch burst open. Tai-ho tumbled out into the corridor, landing hard on his knees. He looked up. He was in the main atrium. The main atrium was the largest space on the station. It had tall ceilings, polished floors, and walls decorated with flags from 100 different species. It was where all the important ceremonies happened, where dignitaries were welcomed, where treaties were signed. Right now, it was filled with people. Hundreds of them. Diplomats in fancy robes, military officers in crisp uniforms, representatives from species Tai-ho could not even name. They stood in perfect lines along both sides of the Great Hall, creating a path down the center. A path for the Empress. And Tai-ho was standing right in the middle of it. He was covered in blue coolant. His tool belt was hanging loose around his waist. One of his boots had come untied. He looked like a disaster. He looked like the opposite of everything a person should look like when meeting galactic royalty. For one long second, no one moved. The diplomat stared at him with wide eyes. A Varelian ambassador, tall green, with 4 arms, started quietly moving toward the exit. A Kithrani delegate covered her face with her hands. Then Tejo heard it. Footsteps. Slow, steady, coming from the far end of the hall. He turned his head. The Nocturan procession had entered the atrium. There were about 30 of them. All tall, all beautiful in a terrifying way. They wore black armor that seemed to drink in the light. Their pale faces showed no emotion. At the front walked 2 figures. The first was a man. Broad shoulders. Silver hair. His hand rested on the handle of a curved sword. His eyes scanned the crowd like a predator looking for prey. This was Lord Kiran, the Empress's first consort and personal executioner, and beside him walked Empress Valora. She was the most beautiful and most frightening thing Tejo had ever seen. Her skin was white like fresh snow. Her hair was black and fell past her shoulders in perfect waves. Her eyes were deep red, the color of old blood. She wore a gown that seemed to be made of shadow itself, flowing around her like smoke. She looked like death given form. She looked like the end of everything, and she was walking directly toward Te-Ho. He should run. He knew he should run. His legs screamed at him to move, but he was frozen. His body had stopped listening to his brain. The Empress drew closer. 20 meters. 15. 10. Everyone in the atrium held their breath. Park Yuna, watching from the observation deck above, gripped the railing so hard her knuckles turned white. "Someone get him out of there," she whispered. But no one could move. No one dared. 5 meters. The Empress stopped. She stood directly in front of Kang Tejo, the maintenance worker from Earth who fixed pipes for a living. Her red eyes looked down at him. Her pale lips were pressed together. Lord Kiran's hand tightened on his sword. The silence was absolute. Not even the air systems made a sound. Tejo's heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. His mouth was dry. His mind was empty. He had no idea what to do. So he did the only thing he could think of. He opened his mouth, and that was when everything changed. Tejo's brain stopped working. This was not unusual for him. When he was nervous, his mind had a habit of going completely blank. It had happened during his school exams. It had happened during his job interview. It had happened the first time he talked to a girl he liked. But this was different. This was not a test or an interview. This was Empress Valora, the ancient ruler who had killed more people than Tejo could count. She was standing 3 feet away from him, and her red eyes were staring directly into his soul. He needed to bow. Every species in the galaxy knew that you bow when you meet the Nocturne Empress. You lower your eyes. You say something respectful. You do not make sudden movements. You do not speak unless spoken to. These were the rules. Everyone knew them. Te-Ho knew them too, but his body was not listening to the rules. His body was in full panic mode. His heart was racing. His palms were sweating. His knees felt like they were made of water. And his mouth, operating completely on its own, decided to speak. "Your hair is really pretty." The words came out before he could stop them. They hung in the air like a bomb that had not yet exploded. The entire atrium went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that happens when everyone stops breathing at the same time. Tejo's brain caught up to what his mouth had just said. "Oh, no. He had just commented on the Empress's hair. The Empress. The one who killed people for less. Much less. But he could not stop. The panic had taken over completely, and words were pouring out of him like water from a broken pipe. "I mean, the way it catches the light," he continued, his voice shaking. "It looks like a nebula. You know, those big space clouds? The pretty ones with all the colors? Your hair looks like that. Except dark. Like a dark nebula. A scary dark nebula. Someone in the crowd made a small choking sound. But beautiful, Taeho added quickly. Really beautiful. Scary, but beautiful. Like a black hole? No, that is not a good comparison. Black holes destroy things. I am not saying you destroy things. I mean, you probably do destroy things. You are an empress. That is part of the job, I think. He was going to die. He was absolutely going to die. He could see Lord Kieran's hand moving toward his sword. The blade was probably very sharp. Taeho hoped it was sharp. At least then it would be quick. What I mean to say, Taeho continued, because apparently his mouth had a death wish, is that you are very beautiful. Your Majesty. In a terrifying way. Terrifyingly beautiful. That is a compliment. I think. I hope that is a compliment. Please let that be a compliment. He finally managed to close his mouth. His entire face was red. The blue coolant on his skin probably made him look purple. The silence stretched on. Lord Kieran had drawn his sword halfway. The blade gleamed in the atrium lights. His eyes were fixed on Taeho with cold fury. The diplomats did not move. The Varelian ambassador had stopped breathing entirely. His green skin was turning slightly blue. A Kethrani delegate was silently crying. Park Yuna, watching from above, had covered her face with both hands. She was already planning Taeho's funeral in her head. She hoped his family would understand. Empress Valora stood perfectly still. Her red eyes studied the trembling human in front of her. Her pale face showed nothing. No anger, no amusement. Nothing at all. Then something happened that no one expected. Her lips moved. The corners of her mouth curved upward. Just slightly. Just a little. And then she laughed. It was not a loud laugh. It was soft, quiet, like the sound of wind through dead leaves. But it was unmistakably a laugh. The effect on the crowd was immediate. Diplomats looked at each other in confusion. Lord Kieran froze with his sword half drawn, his face showing shock for the first time in centuries. The Nocturne guards behind the Empress exchanged glances. None of them had heard their ruler laugh in over 400 years. What is your name, little human? The Empress asked. Her voice was like honey and ice. Sweet but cold. Beautiful but dangerous. It was the kind of voice that made you want to obey and run away at the same time. Taeho swallowed hard. Kang Taeho, Your Majesty. And what do you do on this station, Kang Taeho? I work in maintenance, Your Majesty. I fix things. Pipes mostly? And air filters. Sometimes doors. He paused. I am very sorry about standing in your way. I did not mean to. The hatch was stuck. I did not know you would be here. I did not know anyone would be here. I thought I was in Corridor 7B. You are in the main atrium. Yes, I can see that now. This is very much not Corridor 7B. Another small laugh from the Empress. The sound sent chills down Taeho's spine, but not entirely in a bad way. You are covered in some kind of fluid, she observed. Coolant, Your Majesty. It is used to keep the engines from overheating. It is not supposed to be on my face. Or anywhere on me, really. Today has not been a good day. The Empress tilted her head slightly. It was a small movement, but it made her look almost curious. Like a cat watching a mouse do something unexpected. I have lived for 800 years, she said. In that time, thousands of beings have stood before me. Diplomats, kings, generals, warriors. All of them chose their words carefully. All of them measured every breath. All of them were afraid. She took one step closer. Taeho could smell something like winter flowers. You are also afraid, she continued. I can hear your heart beating. I can smell the fear on your skin. And yet, you told me my hair looks like a nebula. I am very sorry about that. Do not be." Her red eyes gleamed. It was the first honest thing anyone has said to me in a very long time. She turned to face the assembled crowd. Every diplomat straightened immediately. "This human will walk with me," she announced. "He will sit at my side during the opening ceremony." The crowd did not react. They were too stunned to react. A maintenance worker? Covered in coolant? Sitting beside the Empress? Lord Kiran leaned close to his ruler and spoke in a low voice. "My Empress, this is highly irregular. He has not been vetted." "He has not been. He has been honest," Valora interrupted. "That is vetting enough." She turned back to Tejo and extended one pale hand. Her fingers were long and elegant. Her nails were painted black. "Come, Kang Tejo," she said. "Walk with me." Tejo looked at her hand. He looked at the crowd of diplomats who were staring at him like he had grown a second head. He looked at Lord Kiran, who appeared to be considering whether he could murder a human with just his eyes. Then he looked back at the Empress. She was terrifying. She was beautiful. She had just saved his life for reasons he did not understand. What else could he do? He took her hand, thought it was cold. Cold like ice. Cold like death. But her grip was gentle, almost soft. Together, they walked down the center of the atrium. The crowd parted before them like water around a stone. No one spoke. No one even moved. And in the observation deck above, Park Yuna slowly lowered her hands from her face. Her expression was a mix of confusion, relief, and complete disbelief. What just happened? She whispered. No one had an answer. The next 3 days were the strangest of Kang Tejo's life, that it started with the opening ceremony. He was seated at the high table, directly to the left of Empress Valora. This was a position of honor, a position that should have gone to a planetary governor or a military commander. Instead, it went to a maintenance worker who still had blue coolant stains on his boots. The other diplomats did not know how to react. Some pretended not to notice him. Others stared openly, their faces full of confusion. A few looked angry, like they had been insulted. The Terran delegation's chief diplomat, a stern woman named Admiral Song, spent the entire dinner with her head in her hands. Tejo did not eat much. He was too nervous. Every few minutes, he would glance at the Empress beside him, and she would catch his eye, and he would look away quickly like a child caught stealing sweets. She seemed amused by this, which was terrifying. When the ceremony ended, Park Yuna was waiting for him in the corridor outside. She grabbed his arm and pulled him into an empty room. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide. She looked like she had not slept in days, even though it had only been a few hours. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I do not know. You complimented her hair." "I know. I was there. You told the most dangerous being in the galaxy that her hair looks like a scary nebula. To be fair, I also said it was beautiful." Yuna made a sound that was half laugh and half scream. She pressed her palms against her forehead and took several deep breaths. "Tejo," she said slowly, "do you understand what has happened? 300 years of nocturne diplomacy. 300 years of careful negotiations and formal protocols. And in 5 minutes, you managed to get invited to the high table by telling the Empress she has nice hair. I did not plan it. I know you did not plan it. That is what makes it worse." She started pacing back and forth. Her boots clicked against the metal floor. "The other delegations are going crazy," she continued. "The Varelians think humanity has some secret weapon. The Kethrani believe you must be a spy. The Sarati are convinced this is all part of a massive political strategy. It is not a strategy. I fix pipes. I know you fix pipes." She stopped pacing and looked at him. "But the Empress does not seem to care about that. She has requested your presence at tomorrow's dinner as well. Taeho's stomach dropped. She what? You heard me. I cannot do that. I am not a diplomat. I do not know how to talk to important people. I barely know how to talk to regular people. Yuna sighed. She looked tired. She looked like she had aged 10 years in one day. You do not have a choice, she said. When the Nocturne Empress requests something, you do not say no. Saying no is how people disappear. So Taeho went to the second dinner. And the third. And every formal event for the rest of the summit. Each time, Empress Valora asked for him by name. Each time, he was placed beside her. And each time, he said something awkward and nervous. And she seemed to enjoy it. On the second night, she asked him about his work. Tell me about these pipes you fix, she said. They carry coolant through the station, he explained. If they break, things overheat. Machines stop working. Sometimes there are small explosions. Explosions? Small ones, usually. How fascinating. Taeho was fairly sure she was mocking him, but her face gave nothing away. On the third night, she asked him about Earth. What is your home world like? She inquired. It is nice, Your Majesty. Lots of water. Green plants. Some pollution in the cities, but we are working on that. Do humans have art? Yes, we have paintings and music and stories. What kind of music? And then, because Taeho's brain had apparently learned nothing from his previous mistakes, he panicked. Many kinds, he said. We have classical music, and rock music, and something called trot music, which is very popular with older people. It is very cheerful. Lots of singing. Sing something for me. Taeho froze. What? Sing. A song from your world. I wish to hear it. The entire table went silent. The other diplomats looked at Taeho with expressions of horror and sympathy. He could not say no. He had just explained why saying no was bad. So Kang Taeho, maintenance worker, sang a trot song in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. It was a song his grandmother used to sing. It was about spring flowers and young love. It was deeply embarrassing. His voice cracked twice. When he finished, the silence was heavy. Then Empress Valora spoke. Delightfully primitive, she said. I enjoyed it. Taeho was not sure if that was a compliment or an insult. He decided not to ask. Later that night, Yuna found him again. You sang for her, she said flatly. She asked. You sang a trot song. To the vampire queen. It was my grandmother's favorite. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she started laughing. It was the kind of laughter that comes when someone is too tired and too confused to do anything else. I give up, she said between laughs. I completely give up. You are either the luckiest man in the galaxy or the stupidest. Possibly both. What neither of them knew was the reason behind everything. In her private chambers that night, Empress Valora sat alone in the darkness. She did not need light. Her eyes could see perfectly without it. She was thinking about the human. The Nocturnes were not just predators. They were empaths. They fed on blood, yes, but they also fed on emotion. Fear, anger, joy, desire. Every feeling had a taste. And for 800 years, Valora had tasted them all. But mostly, she had tasted lies. Every diplomat who stood before her radiated deception. Their smiles were false. Their compliments were calculated. Even their fear was mixed with ambition and greed. They told her what they thought she wanted to hear, and every word tasted like ash in her mouth. But the human was different. When he had stumbled into the atrium, covered in coolant and trembling with terror, he had looked at her and said the first thing that came to his mind. His words had been clumsy. His delivery had been terrible. But his emotion had been pure, genuine wonder, honest fear. Real admiration. It had tasted like sunlight. Velora had not tasted sunlight in 400 years. She had forgotten what honesty felt like, and now she could not stop thinking about it. She looked out the window at the stars. Beyond the station, perhaps, she thought, there was something valuable in human chaos after all. On the fourth day of the summit, something changed. Tae-Ho was in his quarters, trying to fix a broken console when his door opened. He turned around and nearly dropped his tools. Lord Kiran was standing in his doorway. The Empress's consort was even more terrifying up close. He was tall, nearly 7 feet. His silver hair was pulled back tight. His red eyes burned with barely contained hostility. His hand, as always, rested on his sword. "The Empress wishes to speak with you," he said. "Alone." Taeho's mouth went dry. "Alone? That is what I said, human. Is this a good thing or a bad thing?" Kiran did not answer. He simply turned and walked away, clearly expecting Taeho to follow. Taeho followed. They walked through corridors that grew darker and quieter. The nocturne section of the station had been modified to suit their needs. The lights were dim. The air was cold. It felt like walking into a tomb. They stopped at a large door. Kiran opened it and gestured for Taeho to enter. "Do not disappoint her," the consort said quietly. It sounded like a threat. Taeho stepped inside. The room was beautiful and frightening at the same time. Dark curtains hung from the walls. Strange plants grew in silver pots, their leaves black as midnight. In the center of the room was a chair that looked more like a throne. And on that throne sat Empress Valora. She was wearing a simpler gown tonight, dark red like old wine. Her black hair was loose around her shoulders. Without her full royal armor, she looked almost human, almost approachable. Almost. "Kang Taeho," she said. "Please, sit." There was a small chair across from her. Taeho sat down carefully, like the chair might attack him if he moved too fast. "You must have questions," the Empress said. "Yes, Your Majesty. Ask them." Taeho hesitated. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind for 3 days. "Why me?" Valora smiled. It was a small smile, but it transformed her face completely. She looked less like a monster and more like a woman with a secret. "Do you know what the Nocturnes truly are?" she asked. "Vampires." "You drink blood." "Yes, but that is not all we do." She leaned forward slightly. "We are empaths, Kantiho. We feel emotions. We taste them. Every creature that stands before me broadcasts their feelings like a signal, and I receive that signal whether I want to or not." Taeho blinked. "You can feel what people are feeling. Always, every moment. Every interaction? That sounds exhausting." She laughed softly. "It is, but it is also useful. I know when people lie to me. I know when they are afraid. I know when they want something. For 800 years, I have tasted every emotion that exists. And what does that have to do with me?" The Empress was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost sad. "When you stumbled into that atrium, covered in coolant and terrified out of your mind, do you know what I felt from you? Fear? Yes, but not just fear." She met his eyes. "You were afraid, but you were also genuinely amazed. When you looked at me, you did not see a weapon to be used or a threat to be avoided. You saw something beautiful, something wonderful. And you said so, even though you were certain I would kill you for it." Taeho felt his face getting hot. I was panicking. I did not know what I was saying. Exactly. You were not calculating. You were not scheming. You simply spoke the truth as you felt it in that moment. She stood up and walked to the window. The stars outside gleamed like scattered diamonds. "Do you know how rare that is?" She asked. Do you know how long it has been since someone stood before me and simply told the truth? 400 years. 400 years of lies and flattery and carefully constructed deception. Every word measured. Every smile calculated. Every compliment designed to manipulate. She turned back to face him. And then a human covered in coolant told me my hair looks like a nebula. And he meant it. Taeho did not know what to say. So he said nothing? You cannot imagine what honesty tastes like after 4 centuries of lies, Valora continued. It is like drinking clean water after a lifetime of poison. It is like breathing fresh air after being trapped underground. I did not know, Taeho said quietly. Of course you did not. How could you? She sat back down, closer to him now. Your species is young, chaotic. You have not learned to hide yourselves yet. You feel things openly. You express them without thought. It is considered a weakness by most of the galaxy. Is it? No. Her red eyes gleamed. It is a strength. The greatest strength I have encountered in 800 years of life. She reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cold, but gentle. The other species fear you, Kang Taeho. They do not understand you. Humans are unpredictable, emotional, chaotic. You break the rules without even knowing they exist. We are kind of a mess, Taeho admitted. Yes, you are. But you are an honest mess. She smiled again. And that is more valuable than all the careful diplomacy in the galaxy. They sat in silence for a moment. Taeho was processing everything he had heard. It was a lot to take in. What happens now? He asked finally. Tomorrow is the final day of the summit, Valora said. The delegations will present their proposals. Alliances will be discussed. Agreements will be made or rejected. And humanity? The Empress stood up. She walked back to her throne and sat down, her posture becoming more formal, more regal. But there was warmth in her eyes that had not been there before. Tomorrow, I will make a decision, she said. A decision that will surprise everyone, including my own people. What decision? You will see. She waved her hand, dismissing him. Go now, Kang Taeho. Rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. Taeho stood up. He bowed, which he probably should have done when he entered. Then he walked to the door. Taeho, the Empress called. He turned back. Thank you, she said, for your honesty, even if it was accidental. You are welcome, Your Majesty. He paused. And your hair really is very pretty. She laughed. It was louder this time. More genuine. Get out of here, you strange little human. He left, his heart still racing. But for the first time in 4 days, he was not afraid. He was curious. What was the Empress planning? The final day of the summit arrived with tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Every delegation had gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. It was the largest room on Horizon's Edge, built specifically for moments like this. Thousands of seats rose in tiers around the central platform. Flags from every species hung from the ceiling. The air hummed with anticipation and fear. Kang Taeho was seated with the Terran delegation. Park Yuna sat beside him, her face calm, but her hands clasped tight in her lap. Admiral Song was on his other side, looking like she wanted to throw him out an airlock. Whatever happens, Yuna whispered. Try not to say anything. I was not planning to. That is what you said before you compared the Empress to a space cloud. Taeho did not have a response to that. One by one. The delegations made their proposals. The Varelians wanted trade rights. The Kethrani wanted military protection. The Serati wanted access to Nocturne technology. Each request was formal, careful, measured. And each time, Empress Valora listened with a face of stone. She rejected them all. The trade rights were unnecessary. The military protection was Unwanted. The technology access was out of the question. By the time the fifth delegation had been dismissed, the mood in the hall had shifted from hopeful to desperate. The Nocturne Empire had never allied with anyone. They stood alone. They liked it that way. Then it was humanity's turn. Admiral Song stepped forward. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a soldier before she was a diplomat. She had negotiated 100 treaties. She knew exactly what to say and how to say it. Empress Valora, she began. The Terran Confederation seeks. Stop. The Empress said. Admiral Song froze mid-sentence. Valora rose from her throne. The entire hall went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. I do not wish to hear another prepared speech, she said. Her voice carried through the hall without effort. I have heard enough of those to last another 800 years. She descended from the platform and walked into the center of the assembly. Her red eyes scanned the crowd. For 300 years, this galaxy has approached the Nocturne Empire with fear and strategy. You send your best diplomats with their careful words and hidden agendas. You tell us what you think we want to hear. You smile while your hearts are full of terror and greed. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We are not fools, Valora continued. We know what you truly feel. We taste your deception like poison on our tongues. And yet you wonder why we reject every alliance. Why we stand alone. She stopped walking. She was standing directly below the Terran delegation now. Her eyes found Tejo in the crowd. 4 days ago, a human stumbled into my path, she said. He was covered in coolant. His uniform was a mess. He was clearly terrified. He had no training, no preparation, no script to follow. The hall was absolutely silent. And do you know what he did? He told me my hair was pretty. Like a nebula, he said. A scary nebula. But beautiful. A few gasps. A few confused murmurs. It was clumsy. It was awkward. It was completely inappropriate. Valora's lips curved into a slight smile. It was also the most honest thing anyone has said to me in 400 years. She turned to address the full assembly. Humanity does not play by your rules. They do not calculate every word. They do not hide behind masks of diplomacy. They are chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. They say what they feel, even when it might get them killed. A voice rose, filling the hall. That is not weakness. That is strength. The strength of honesty in a galaxy built on lies. She walked back to the platform and turned to face the crowd one final time. Today, the Nocturne Empire will do something it has never done before. We will form an alliance. Not with the careful diplomats or the cunning strategists. We will ally with humanity. The reaction was immediate. Shouts of surprise. Gasps of disbelief. The Varelian ambassador nearly fell out of his chair. The Kethrani delegation started arguing among themselves. A Serati representative fainted. Admiral Song looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. This is unprecedented, someone shouted. The Nocturnes we have never found a species worth allying with, Valora interrupted. Until now. She looked at Tejo again. Humanity's chaos is what this galaxy needs. Their honesty, their openness, the way they feel things without shame or calculation. For too long, the great powers have hidden behind walls of deception. Perhaps it is time for something different. She raised her hand. I, Empress Valora of the Nocturne Empire, hereby offer humanity a formal alliance. Not as subjects, not as servants, as equals. The hall erupted into chaos. But through the noise, through the shouting and the confusion, Tejo heard something else. He heard Park Yuna laughing beside him. She was laughing so hard, there were tears in her eyes. You did it, she said. You absolute disaster of a human being. You did it. Taeho looked at her. I did not do anything. I just panicked and said something stupid. Exactly. She punched his shoulder. That is the most human thing in the entire galaxy. The treaty was signed within the hour. It was the fastest diplomatic agreement in galactic history. The Nocturne representatives seemed eager to finalize everything before their Empress changed her mind. The Terran delegation was still in shock, just signing whatever was put in front of them. Afterward, there was a celebration. Drinks were poured. Speeches were made. Hands were shaken across species lines. Taeho tried to slip away quietly. He had never been good at parties, but before he reached the door, a cold hand touched his shoulder. He turned. Empress Valora stood behind him. Leaving so soon? She asked. I thought I would go back to my quarters. Maybe fix some pipes? That is what I am good at. You are good at more than fixing pipes, Kang Taeho. I really am not, Your Majesty. She studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her gown and pulled out a small pin. It was silver, shaped like a crescent moon, the symbol of the Nocturne Empire. I want you to have this, she said. As a reminder. A reminder of what? That sometimes the best diplomacy is no diplomacy at all. She pressed the pin into his hand. You changed history today. All because you panicked and spoke from your heart. Taeho looked at the pin. It was small and delicate in his palm. Thank you, he said. For everything. For not killing me. For the alliance. For everything. Thank you, she replied. For reminding me what honesty tastes like. She turned and walked away, her shadow gown flowing behind her like smoke. Taeho watched her go. Then he looked at the pin again. A week ago, he had been a maintenance worker who fixed pipes. Now he was the man who had accidentally started an interstellar alliance by complimenting a vampire's hair. Life was strange sometimes. The next morning, Taeho found out he had been promoted. His new title was Cultural Liaison to the Nocturne Empire. It was a position that had been invented specifically for him. His office was next to Park Eunice. She had also been promoted to Director of Human Nocturne Relations. I still do not understand what happened, Taeho said on his first day in the new office. Neither does anyone else, Yuna replied. The other species have been trying to figure it out for days. They think we have some secret strategy, some hidden approach to diplomacy that no one else understands. What do you tell them? She grinned. The truth. That we sent a maintenance worker who panicked and told the Empress she had pretty hair. And they believe that? No. They think we are lying to protect our real secret. Taeho laughed. For the first time in days, he really laughed. Because the truth was, there was no secret. No strategy. No grand plan. Just a scared human who said what he felt. And sometimes, that was enough across the galaxy. The story spread. The tale of the human who panicked, complimented a monster, and changed everything. Other species tried to understand it. They studied human psychology. They analyzed human culture. They looked for the hidden meaning. They never found it. Because the meaning was simple. In a galaxy full of lies. Honesty was the most powerful weapon of all. And humanity had plenty of it.